In my video where I talk about how Jesus is not mentioned in the Old Testament, I got many comments, and Terry posted one comment, and he was talking about Daniel chapter 10, and many people also brought up Daniel chapter 10. And I'm going to show you how Daniel chapter 10 is not talking about your Jesus. But before I do that, so that it is in context, to which he is taking this completely out of context in order to ascribe this to Jesus, which happens very often, let me demonstrate to you first by this video, and then I'll show you how they connect to one another, that Jesus is not in Daniel chapter 10.
The 5 most epic battles of the Bible, Part 2. In the Bible, in the book of Daniel, chapter 10.
I am the Prince of Persia, the most powerful spiritual prince of war, and I confront against the people of God.
At that moment, the gates of heaven were opened, and the archangel Gabriel came down from heaven like a thunderbolt, drawing his sword, because this demon had offended the kingdom of God. Gabriel launched himself against the demon, attacking him many times in order to defeat him and to be able to continue on his way. But this demon was very powerful and responded with many attacks against Gabriel, and began a great fight that would last 21 days between Gabriel and the demon known as the Prince of Persia. The demon attacked the one sent by God with all his strength and shouting offenses against God. Gabriel could not defeat him and was forced to call upon the archangel Michael himself so that he could defeat this powerful demon. Comment and follow me for part 3.
So now, as we can see, Daniel chapter 10 is not talking about Jesus at all. The scholastic agreement is the fact that in Daniel chapter 10, they're talking about the angel Gabriel coming down, and he is the one who also, when you look at the entirety of what was written in Daniel chapter 10, he has a conversation with Daniel, expressing within that conversation how he had been in battle with this Prince of Persia for 21 days, the same battle to which was spoken of in the video. Now, think about this logically and how it would damage your consensus of your layman's consensus of Jesus being the person who came like a human. And understand that in other parts of the Old Testament, it describes angels coming down like a human, looking like a human. And to Abraham, to Jacob, to Isaac, to many other people in the Bible, Moses, they look like a human, and they are referred to as the Son of Man. That terminology can be used in both ways, to say Son of Man or in human-like form. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're Jesus as the Son of God to have come down. The same thing with Daniel in the furnace. The 3 Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego in the furnace. Now, as far as this concerned, think about it. If the first angel who was speaking to Daniel fought the Prince of Persia for 21 days but could not defeat him, then you're saying that your Jesus could not defeat this Prince of Persia, this other demon, that it took him tag teaming with the Archangel Michael, in order for him to defeat this being. That would be like in the comic books, where the Hulk and Juggernaut fighting Doomsday, making Jesus Juggernaut, who could not defeat Doomsday on his own, but then required the extra assist by the Hulk in order to defeat Doomsday. On a comic book channel that I follow, that was a huge conversation. Your Jesus would have to be like World War Hulk and have the ability to come and defeat Doomsday by himself and not require the assistance of Juggernaut in order to defeat him. So, but back to the subject at hand here. If your Jesus is Daniel chapter 10's person who comes down and speaks with Daniel, then he's too weak to be your Jesus if he's supposed to be God, because then that would make that demon more powerful than God, which would also make the Archangel Michael more powerful than your God. So when you take it in full context, it doesn't work itself out. And others have made commentary about another part of the Bible, Isaiah 53, to try to say that that is the foretelling, the prophecy of Jesus. And I'm going to break that part down as well. And I prefer to use this young lady's comment, Molly, because she's just asking the question of please explain it, to help her with this thought process, as she may be in the process of deconstructing herself. So let me break it down for those who think that Isaiah 53 and Isaiah 6:61 is talking about your Jesus. First, we have to break down Isaiah itself and understand this. Most people and most scholars recognize that the writings of Isaiah are not written by one author, but are written by multiple authors over about a 200 to 300 year time frame. In order for it to be written by one author, then that would mean that one author lived for about 300 plus years. One of the reasons why we can see this is because in some of the earlier writings of, well, in the middle chapters of Isaiah around 40, it speaks of Jerusalem as if in the present day that it has already been destroyed, not that it is going to be destroyed. You see, Isaiah would have had to have lived, if he ever existed, in the 8th century, in the 700 BCE. If he had lived in that time frame and made those prophecies about the rest of Isaiah, then it would have worked. But because of the style of the writing, and we see the change of that style over a 200 to 300 year period, we can tell that it is written by multiple authors. Now, let's look at historically what's going on at this time. At this time frame, what you have in the 8th century is the Assyrian Empire expanding to the Mediterranean Sea. And in that expansion, they ended up conquering the majority of the northern the Israelite kingdom. And Isaiah is writing about this at that time frame, about how they were coming in and destroying the different cities. And then it is in the later chapters where an additional writer is talking about how these people will come in and what is talking about the Babylonian exile rather, and how that they have been exiled because they started walking away from God, because the northern kingdom of Israel began to eat pork. They began to do child sacrifices, the Moloch sacrifice. They were going away from the beliefs of the Old Testament, the older writings, the older teachings of worshiping Yahweh. And so that was going to be their destruction. So many of the conversations are their destruction. And then while they're in Babylonian captivity, they are giving references to a salvation, to someone who will be their Messiah. Now, this Messiah is not your Jesus Messiah, simply because when the New Testament is written and it is describing this Jesus, those writers, Josephus, Philo, Herod, who were rabbinical, and they were Hellenistic Jews. They knew that in order to connect Jesus to the Old Testament, in order to quell the Jewish revolts that were going on in the Roman government as ordered by Vespasian, that they would have to connect Jesus to your Isaiah 53 in order for the people to accept that the Messiah had already come, and they should stop their fighting and stop being a disruptive force in the Roman government, especially in Alexandria, Egypt. So Isaiah 53 does not speak of that. And by the time we get to Isaiah from 56 on, this is after the Babylonian captivity, after Darius has released the children of Israel back into their kingdom as a vassal state. And when he's in 61, verse 1 and 2, and if you continue to read the whole thing, certainly not written by the prophet Isaiah, but it is written and talking about the year to which they were able to return, and that they were already in the process of rebuilding the temples and things of that nature. It is not something for the Gentiles, it is something only for the Jewish people, but it is talking about the year of the Lord, that they were able to rebuild their temples, to rebuild their homes, to rebuild the walls around Jerusalem. So this year was not a year for Jesus' return and all this glory and everything, but this was in reference to the release from Babylonian captivity in 61, uh, in chapter 61. So this is the time frame of around 539, 535 BCE, that this year of return that was happening and is being described in Isaiah 61. This is not a telling of the forecoming of Jesus, but just the Israelite kingdom being able to be reestablished as a vassal state of the Persian Empire during that time frame. So there it is still not talking about Jesus. Just modern day Christians have attached that to Jesus in order to facilitate their narrative and negotiate the scriptures to make it fit. So y'all have a great day, and remember always, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.